You're watching Cadroll Hunter. Recently, I had the chance to purchase a huge collection of Canadian coins. Today, we're going to dive into this little box with some big, chunky silver. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, this is James and you're watching my channel, Cadroll Hunter. Very recently, I had the incredible opportunity to purchase a huge collection of Canadian coins, full of silver coins, lots of pennies and nickels, some really old stuff, and we've already gone through some of it, the dimes and quarters, and we found tons of old stuff. And in this box, I'm actually super excited because this box is full of silver. We've got silver dollars, we've got half dollars, Canadian, and some American, as you can see in here. And I know for certain there's at least one thing in here that's going to be a significant upgrade to my collection. So I'm going to dump this stuff out of the tin. We'll take a little set, get a sense of what's in here, and then we'll sort it all out and see what we've got. This is so exciting. So here it is out of the tin. We got a baggie here that looks to be probably the stuff that isn't silver. We've got some nickel dollars and we've got some loonies and other things. We'll take a peek at those. We've got, oh, there's some beautiful silver. We'll look at that stuff. But yeah, we've got Canadian silver dollars. We've got US silver dollars. That's a peace dollar right there. We've got some loose silver. This is pretty fantastic. So if you've seen my most recent video where I talked about getting this huge coin collection, you probably know the story, but if not, the short version is that I got an email from Tristan who reached out to me saying that he was looking through his dad's old collection. His dad had passed a couple of years ago and didn't know what to do with it. He was really hoping it would find a good home. We met, we set out a price here. We kind of looked at what he had, but I haven't looked in detail. And so that's why I'm really excited to get into it. And we've got some old stuff in here. So thanks so much to Tristan and the family for giving me an opportunity to purchase this collection. It is going to be tons of fun for me to go through. And I want to share that with you guys who follow my channel. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with the bag here. I'm going to sort it out and we'll see what we've got. So I'll set the silver aside for now. We'll definitely come back to that. I'm going to open this up and kind of get it sorted out. We'll take a peek. So we got a couple things here that are not Canadian. We've got a 1972, I think this is a Philadelphia Clad half dollar from the United States. That is John F. Kennedy there. That's pretty cool. And then this one here, this is a United States $1 coin. It's a 2000p. And I don't know a whole lot about these $1 coins, but I do know that this is the year that you want to look for a fairly scarce and valuable variety. The 2000p is the most common of these US dollar coins. Almost a billion of them, like 700 and some million were minted in the Philadelphia Mint and over 500 million in the Denver Mint. But the one we're looking for is the Cheerios dollar. It is a dollar coin that was actually put in packages of Cheerios, just as it would sound. And the way to see that is to look at the tail feathers of the eagle. And what we would see, this is the normal standard Philadelphia minted one. The one we would see has much more detail, particularly in the tail feathers, we'd see that. So this is the standard one. There's another variety too that I'm aware of, and that is the wounded eagle. And basically it looks like there would be a spear, like some kind of a dye anomaly. Looks like a spear going through this eagle's body. And we don't have that here either, but a 2001 Philadelphia US dollar, that's pretty cool. And I can imagine that both of these coins, Edgar probably got in change because he was more of a hoarder or a rummager of coins. If he found something special, he threw it in the jar. So he probably got these and threw them in the jar because these are different. These are not the things you would normally see circulating. Up above here, we got a bunch of loonies and some in some really good shapes. So we'll start at the very left. There's the 2005 Terry Fox, and there's a bunch of them. So we can look for the variety. We'll talk about that in a second. We've got a 2006 Olympic commemorative loon, a really beautiful 2008 Olympic loon. We've got the 2010 Vancouver Games commemorative. And then we've got this 2011 National Parks This is actually very, very cool. Parks Canada, and it's in really beautiful shape. So that's awesome. But we'll take a look at these guys because the Terry Fox ones actually have a variety we want to look for. Throw them under the scope here and we'll get a better look. First off, I need to say that this is an incredible coin. Just the design elements, the detail in this coin is just phenomenal. Terry Fox, of course, was recently announced to be the person who was going to replace Wilfrid Laurier on the $5 bill. So Terry Fox is going to be on our $5 bill. That has not been released. We don't see the design just yet. There have been some mock-ups online, which are very interesting. But this coin commemorates Terry Fox, his Marathon of Hope, which is raising money for cancer research. He had lost his leg to cancer, and you can see in this image here, he's wearing a prosthetic. He got as far as Thunder Bay. He was attempting to run across Canada, and he succumbed to cancer, but is a Canadian icon. On this particular coin, the variety we're looking for is called the no grass variety. I talked about how much detail there is on the coin, and look at all of that detail in the grass, very fine detail. So this is the full grass variety. What we're looking for is a version where some of the detail in the grass here has been essentially polished off of the dies. So they used the die perhaps longer than they should have, and as they polished it to keep using it, some of this really fine detail was eliminated. So we'll throw the next one under here. This one's a little bit more circulated, but it has all of the design, you can see. This next one here is just gorgeous, so full grass. And then this next one, this is actually what I would call partial grass. You can see where some of the fine detail in here is starting to wear away. So this would be sort of the interim stage of this die. There's a later stage where almost all of this detail is gone. You can see more of like a big oval that is just flat. So that's cool. We found a variety. This is what I would call the partial grass. We also got a bunch of Canadian 50-cent pieces. You might call them half dollars if you're from the States, but in Canada we call them 50-cent pieces. And these are all pretty low mintage. They're all minted at between 2 and 3 million. They didn't really circulate a whole lot. These were often kept by collectors, even just casual collectors, because they didn't circulate much and they were harder to find. So they were special and often kept aside, and that's probably why Edgar kept them. We got a 1968, we got a few 70s, a 71, 74, a couple 78s, an 82, an 83, and an 84. By the time we get to 1986, the mintages decrease even further for the 50-cent pieces. In 1986, under 1 million were minted, but by the 1990, they were being minted really between 200 to 5 or 600,000 per year, so they become far more scarce. So while these aren't the really low mintage ones, there are some varieties that we'll want to look for. And whenever I'm looking through Canadian 50-cent pieces, I'm always using my Charlton Standard Catalog of Canadian coins. You can get that from the charltonpress.com website or from lighthousecanada.ca. And don't forget to use my exclusive discount code, CRH20, to get 20% off your purchase. But you can see here's an illustration here where we're looking for an A that is missing on the motto, Amari Usk Admar, from sea to sea. And there's another version in 1974 where we're missing the S in the designer's initials, Thomas Shingles. Now, we have a version of each of these, so we can look for both of those varieties. Here's the 1968, and you can see this is an uncirculated coin. So this hasn't been through people's pockets and cash registers, and this is pretty typical. So you can find these in pretty good grades. The ones that are going to be more valuable would be in the highest grades. And this one isn't going to grade the highest. I can see a little nick over here. There's a bit of damage on this from just, maybe improperly stored. But what we're looking for is this Amari Usk Admar. And you can see this is a pretty well struck coin. We've got a really solid A there. So beautiful coin. This is not going to be the variety that we're looking for. You can see some scratches on the back, actually. This one's pretty heavily damaged. So really not worth anything more than face value for this one. And here's that 74, and we can clearly see we have a full S there, so not that variety. And we got a couple more to look for here. The standard 1978 is called the square jewels, and these jewels on either side of the crown, beside the middle one, are square. there is a scarcer variety that's actually fairly valuable, like I would say like $7 or $8 as opposed to 50 cents, with round jewels. And we have two to look for, so that's not going to be it. And could we possibly get lucky? Not this time. But you'll always want to scope it to see if you find that variety. And finally, in 1982, we're looking for a variety. It's the large bead variety, and this one's even scarcer yet. We've got to flip it over because it's on the obverse, and we're looking at the beads below the queen. Now, this coin here has some dirt on it, but we're looking for the large bead versus the small bead. And the way to tell on this coin is going to be most easily by looking at the hair on this coin. And there is a high relief and a low relief coin. The large beads is the common one, and it's the high relief coin. And this is it. This is it. You'll see there's not a lot of detail on the hair here. And the small bead, the one that is more sought after and harder to find, will have a lot more detail, and the beads themselves will be somewhat larger. But this is where you'll want to look in the queen's bust to see what kind of detail there is on the hair. So this is the common one, and it's a little bit dirty. That's okay. Adding another 50-cent piece to my collection is fine with me because these are just hard to come by. They don't circulate. You're not going to get them coin roll hunting, that's for certain. And lastly, we got a bunch of nickel dollars here. We got a couple 1968s. There's a 77, some 1982s. Actually, here's a couple 1970s. These are Manitoba commemoratives when they joined Confederation in 1970. Sorry, 1870s when they joined, 1970s, the 100th anniversary. And then we've got a 1984 Jacques Cartier, one of the early explorers to North America. The coin we want to look at is this 1968. There are some varieties in here. Now, these ones are just gorgeous. You can see how uncirculated this coin is. That is a beautiful coin. And there is a doubled die reverse we can look for and some variations. So the doubled die reverse you'll see on the date in the 68. You would see doubling, which I don't see here. And we'll check the next one as well. And that one also doesn't appear to have any doubling. We'll just look at this one again. No, we have no doubling. But the other one is around the front of this coin and whether or not there is an island. You can sort of see this island behind it just protrudes before the front of the canoe here. So this certainly has the full island. And if we go to this next one, it also does as well. So this is the normal one. And of course, if you've got that Charlton catalog, it's going to show you some great diagrams of the differences so you can spot. Here's the small island and no island. This is the one we got, which is the normal island. The other thing you'll want to look at on these 1968s is whether or not there's any doubling on these lines, another variety. That's not what we've got here either. So I know I've kept you waiting. Now we're going to get into the silver here because this is super exciting. So let's start with the 50-cent pieces here. So these are all 80% silver. We've got a 1957 here. This one is going to be the laureate portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. You can see that all of these have some level of tarnishing, and this is natural for silver coins. If they haven't been put in flips, they're probably just going to get some environmental damage. This is just what would happen with a silver coin that just is subject to heat, humidity, changes in temperature, things like that. It's normal every day. And if you have coins like this, you don't need to clean them. I would, in fact, leave them. Some of these coins are going to be uncirculated, but will be tarnished, and cleaning the coins might damage them. This is a 1958. There is a variety we can look for here. It's the dot, and the dot is a die variety where there's a dot just below the A there, and that would give us a premium. I don't see it there. It's hard to see because of the tarnishing, but it doesn't appear that that is the dot, but that's 80% Canadian silver. We'll put that down. And then we've got here, this is a 1966, so this is going to be the updated portrait. Again, some tarnishing, but these are probably all uncirculated coins. And then we got a bunch of 1965s, a whole stack of them. There's 5 of them. You can see actually just how beautiful that coin would be if it didn't have all the tarnishing around the edge there, but the center of that design is pretty nice. There's actually a pretty nice cameo here on the obverse. So that's the updated portrait of the Queen. And then we've got the Confederation commemorative. This is 100 years of Confederation 1867 to 1967, 50 cents. That has the wolf on it, one of my favorites. Same obverse, beautiful coin. I love these 1967 Confederation commemoratives. And the 50 cent and the $1 in 1967 are 80% silver, whereas the quarter and the dime, some were minted at 80% and some were minted at 50%, but that's not the case for the 50-cent piece. So we know for sure that is 80% silver. Now this is definitely cool. We've got some American silver, 90% silver. We've got this Kennedy half dollar. It's a 1964 Denver. There's a little D mint mark there below the olive branch. And it's in this cool little collector case in memoriam, Kennedy 1917 to 1963, with that famous quote, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." That is really cool. We've got a Morgan dollar. This is 1921. So last year, Morgan, this would be the most plentiful of the Morgan dollars, I believe. And if I flip it over, it's got a little D mint mark here. And I don't have that. I have the Philadelphia minted 1921 Morgan dollar, but I didn't have the Denver. So that is going in my collection, and that is really wicked. That's a chunky piece of silver. And then we've got a couple of peace dollars. You can see just how circulated this is. So I don't exactly know how Edgar got a hold of this one, if it just, was mixed in with Canadian silver dollars or how he came upon it, but it was obviously in the collection. This has a very small S mint mark. I'll throw it under the scope. We can take a closer look. It's so hard to see. And there's that tiny little S, and you can just see how much wear there is on this coin. You can barely read one there. And this other one is also a 1923 S, same little S mint mark. This one in better condition. It's got more of the detail, less wear on it, but a couple of peace dollars for my collection. Really cool. Now, this is, I think, where it gets really exciting. There are actually 15 Canadian silver dollars here. A bunch of them are commemoratives. And check this out. This is 1935. This is the first year of the Canadian silver dollar. And if I flip it over, it features King George V. This was a commemorative. George V, King, Emperor, 25th year of his reign. So this was intended initially to be a one-off celebrating the 25th year of King George V's reign. And instead, this design, this iconic design here, was carried forward, and in 1936, they started minting these regularly. And 1935 and 1936 were the only years, of course, to feature George V because he passed away. The 1937 features King George VI, his son. And this one is pretty circulated, which is a little unusual, I think, for the 1935, because it was a commemorative. There are lots that are in a pretty decent grade. They wouldn't have necessarily circulated. It looks like this one, it certainly has some toning, but it's lacking some of the detail. But it's a 1935. You just never come across this. I've bought lots of silver dollars in junk silver purchases, but you'd never find the 35, really. Here's another one that is really cool. 1939, featuring the Parliament buildings. And here we'll see King George VI. That is just an awesome coin. I love that design. Maybe one of my favorite designs is this 1949. And we actually got 3 of them, including this one here that is loose. So a couple, but I think the nicest of all of the coins here is this one. It is a beautiful coin. It is uncirculated for sure, and it's got some really attractive toning. It's starting to become black, but it's just beautiful. You can see all of the detail in King George's hair, and just beautiful. The toning actually kind of gives it some contrast, like you can really read the motto here. It is just a beautiful coin. And what's super exciting is that I already had one of these in my collection, and this is a significant upgrade, and I'll show you why. So here's the one that I had in my binder, and can you see that? It's got a big old hole in it. So somebody was wearing this as jewelry, and you can see I've had this for a while now. I got this in a junk silver purchase, so I just mark it if there's something special about it. I got it on December 19th, 2022. I've proudly displayed it in my binder with that hole in it, with the hopes that I would be able to get an upgrade at some point. And I did. In fact, I got 3 of them. All would have upgraded that coin for sure. But I think this is the one that I want to display in my book. So I'm going to put that in a flip to preserve it, to save it, so it's not going to get any scratches or any damage. That is a beautiful coin. We keep going. We've got a 1951. So this is another George VI. Now we're on to 62, and this is going to be Queen Elizabeth II, and this is the laureate portrait. And then we got a whole bunch of 1964s. There's a variety here we want to look for. And a couple of 65s, and there's some varieties to look for there too. And then we've got that 1967 commemorative of Confederation, 100 years with the Canada Goose. There's a rare variety of this one, which is called the diving goose. Basically, it's a rotated die. So this one is not the rotated die. This one is just the standard one. But the diving goose, if you had the queen upright, the goose is on an angle like that, looking like it's diving. That's one to look for if you are fortunate enough to get some older Canadian silver dollars. We'll take a look at these under the scope to see if we've got a variety here. Here's the first one under the scope. And once again, we're looking at Thomas Shingle's initials here, TS. And there is a dot behind both of these letters, and that's the standard version. We've got 4 to look at here, 5 actually. So we're hoping to see, maybe we'll get one without the dot. It wouldn't have the dot after the S. So we're gonna just throw these under here. And that one has the dot, a little harder to see. This one here, we gotta find the right spot on the coin. Of course, it's gonna be the opposite side. Oh, there it is. And it's got the dot. And we got to find it on this one too. And it has the dot. We got one more chance for glory here. And we've got another dot. So it doesn't fetch a huge premium if you find the one without the dot, but it's an interesting variety and you can find it. I think I've found 1 or 2, even just in junk silver purchases. So I don't think dealers are necessarily looking very closely when they're sorting through their junk silver or scrap silver, whatever you want to call it. But it's a variety, if you're interested in those sorts of things, that you can find. It's recognized in the Charlton catalog. So here's one of the 1965s. There's actually 5 different varieties of 1965 that you could easily find. Actually a 6th one if you're looking for one that's super, super rare. But they have to do with the beads on the obverse and the 5 here. This is the pointed 5. You can see it comes to a point there. There's a rounded 5 that just doesn't have that sharp point. Both of the ones that we have here are the pointed 5. You can see that. And then what you're looking for on the obverse is the size of the beads. There is a large bead variety and a small bead variety and a medium bead variety. The small bead variety, the eye is basically pointing to that bead. And both of these ones we have here are the small bead variety. The medium bead is harder to ascertain, but the one tell on that one is that the jewel at the back of the crown here is detached on the medium bead. So that's how you'd be able to see that one easily without trying to figure out, is this bead a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller than the other one? Sometimes that's hard to know. So here's that 1949 all flipped up and ready to go in my binder. That is an awesome upgrade for my collection. Really, really happy to get that. Just a beautiful coin, and I love the toning on that one. It just looks really, really cool, particularly against the boat. It just provides some really great eye appeal. Well, there's a lot more to go through in this collection that I got from Tristan and his family, and we'll do that in some future videos. So hit the notification bell so you find out when those videos come out. I'll be releasing them as I get an opportunity to go through those. I really hope you enjoyed this look at some 50-cent pieces and some dollar coins. We got nickel and clad, and we got tons of silver from my collection, including some US stuff too, which is really cool because it's harder to get here in Canada. If you enjoyed the video and you're not already subscribed to my channel, Cadroll Hunter, please subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And like I said, hit that notification bell so you know when my videos come out. I have new videos coming out all the time. Sometimes it's collection purchases, other things that I've bought. Sometimes it's coin roll hunting and other interesting coin related topics. So stay tuned for more. Thank you so much. I appreciate you watching. I always appreciate it. We'll see you again next time. The sponsors of today's video are Lighthouse Canada and the Charlton Press. Lighthouse Canada is the leading supplier of high-quality numismatic supplies in Canada, and the Charlton Press is the leading publisher of coin and paper money catalogs and price guides for Canadian collectors. Go check out their online stores today and use the exclusive discount code CRH20 for 20% off all your purchases.